Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about audits, everyone's favorite topic and experience. Audits bring a chill down the spine of every adult human, and in particular business owner. Today I have Baiju with me, co-CEO of RightClick, and we're going to be leaning on Baiju's expertise in CMMC audits to talk business owners through certain questions they may have when approaching a CMMC audit.
All right, very good.
So let's start with scope and applicability, Baiju. What contracts require CMMC and when?
So if you're working for the Defense Department, or even not necessarily directly with them, or if you're a subcontractor and you're receiving CUI, which means controlled unclassified information, which could be like drawings for parts on aircraft parts or any sort of defense parts, or some sort of technical data on how to produce the part, that's what CUI is, and that's who would need a CMMC audit.
Okay, so you have a contract with the Defense Department, you're getting a drawing, for instance.
Correct.
So let's say that's not the whole business. Can a business reduce scope by isolating CUI systems?
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the first questions we ask people, or the way we try and make the audits easier is to really shrink down the scope as much as possible. We've done some audits where initially it started with 25 computers, and securing 25 computers, making sure they're updated, making sure all their vulnerabilities are patched can be very challenging. So you can employ, depending on what you're doing, you can employ different things to shrink the scope to maybe just one computer, or maybe just one or two people that need to access the CUI. And we always like to say, for the CUI, it's send, receive, and store. Those are kind of the ways you need to protect it.
Cool, okay. Within the range of scope topics, does Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace put us in scope automatically?
Unfortunately, no. So with Microsoft Commercial 365, it is not CMMC compliant. What we've done is we get a subscription for Microsoft GCC High, which is their government product. Your data lives in a government data center in the US, where only US citizens are working on your data or working on your equipment. Google has the ability to be GCC High. There is a very long 200-page document of things you need to do. You also need to pay more to ensure that only US citizens are working on your Google Workspace. And even in the Microsoft side, there is configurations you need to do to make it CMMC compliant.
Okay. Microsoft seems easier than
It
Google.
Definitely is easier, yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Last question in terms of like scope.
Sure.
What about subcontractors and suppliers? Are they in scope?
Most of the time they are in scope, because if you are exchanging CUI with them, they become in scope. And it's your responsibility as the company that's getting audited to ensure that your subcontractors are compliant as well.
Okay, so just circling back on scope, tell us of those three things you were saying that like you guys are always thinking about when we're preparing for an audit.
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking how to reduce scope, to be honest with you.
Okay.
If we can have, so, you know, there's many different solutions. You know, we've done for some customers with this Azure Virtual Desktop. So you log in to an Azure environment so that your computer is not in scope. It's only that desktop that's living in GCC High that's in scope. That makes life very easy because you just have to secure one device. But we have customers where they print out documents, they need to take a thumb drive to a machine, and it complicates things. So when we start with our process, we're always looking to, number one, shrink the scope, but obviously if you need to produce the parts for your business, we have to, unfortunately, spend more money, do more work, but we can accommodate that.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to timing and deadlines. So big question here, overall, is this like a 90-day scramble, or are we, is it like a sprint or a marathon?
It's a little bit of both. So the rules that came out last year is that November 10th of 2026 is when contracting officers can include CMMC level 2 assessed by a C3PAO into contracts. So from November of 2025 to November of 2026, you can do a self-assessment, which means you just do it yourself. You post your score in, and that's all that can be required. Although we're seeing for multi-year contracts, people are asking for this C3PAO assessment to be completed, but to prepare for the assessment and complete it, it definitely takes a number of months.
Okay, let's break it down just to do the prep. How long does it take to get audit ready?
I'd say it's somewhere between 3 to 6 months, depending on how complicated your scope is. We have customers where, it's like I described, it's just an Azure virtual desktop environment, so that's very quick. It's a month or so to set that up and secure it, and then unfortunately there's quite a bit of documentation that goes around, and you need to make sure whatever you say in your documentation is what you're doing. So if you say you disable account within 1 day, you need to make sure you can prove that you disable that account in 1 day for offboarding.
Okay, got it. Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit in the future. Can a business bid on a contract while remediation is in progress?
They can. So if for whatever reason they do not have all 110 controls met and they're still working on them, they're operating what's called a POAM, which is a plan of action management. And so during that time, it gives you 180 days to remediate any open items. So yes, you absolutely can.
Okay, so then you can, well, this is kind of connected, but what happens if a business fails an audit or aren't certified in time?
Well, it all depends what your contracting officer writes into the contract. So
okay.
Ideally, you don't want that to happen. Kind of some safeguards you have is before you do your real audit, you do a mock audit so that if there are any red flags or things that you may not be ready for, you can know about them ahead of time. Usually the mock and the real audit is there's a 6-week gap, so you have some time to remediate anything.
Okay.
So, and then also, if things are going south in the real audit, you can always convert the real audit into another mock audit.
Oh, okay. In real time?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Let's move on to the question I'm sure most business owners are thinking about, that's cost.
Right.
Is this certification a one-time cost or a recurring cost?
It's both.
Okay.
So there's the cost of the auditor, which we've seen is in the 50,000-ish range. That includes usually a mock audit and a real audit. If you have 5 sites and they have to do a lot of traveling, obviously it's going to be a little bit more, but we've seen the minimum price to be in that $40,000 to $50,000 range.
Okay.
Now, for a company like us to get you ready to be prepped, it's probably around the similar price in that $40,000 to $50,000 range. Cost is doing the documentation, doing all the technical implementation, making sure that what we say in the documentation is actually what's happening in real life, so when the auditors come, we can prove that to them. So those are one-time costs of roughly $80,000 to $100,000. Depending on how many computers and how much the complexity of your scope, there is a recurring component of it because you have to pay for the GCC High subscription, the Azure Virtual Desktop if you're using that. So I usually tell customers to budget somewhere between $3,000 to $10,000 a month.
Yeah, and that's like taking your existing licensing and changing it to the compliant licensing.
Correct.
Okay.
And I mean, a lot of times you're not actually getting rid of your old licensing. You're just only when you need to transact with CUI, you'll log into this environment and send and receive emails or send and receive SharePoint links. But for your everyday use, you use your regular email. So I wouldn't say you're going to cancel any subscriptions. Unfortunately, you're just going to be adding more.
Okay. Yeah, and so is it something that we do where we look at the cost relative to the DoD revenue that the business, is that something that's considered?
Well, I think it should be considered, and we, prior to even us starting to do any consulting or anything like that, we are very upfront with the customers regarding the costs, because if you're only doing $100,000 of
Right.
work for the DoD, you don't want to spend $100,000 on certification. I will say there's very few companies that are certified, so having a certification definitely puts you ahead of your competitors, because as of about 2 months ago, there was only 400 companies certified, and there's about 90,000 companies in the defense industrial base. So a very small percentage of companies have been certified. Obviously, that's picking up, but it is difficult and costly and time-consuming to get that certification.
Yeah, so getting certified creates more opportunity for business
Correct.
for you.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so that's the end of part 1, where we talked about scope, timing, and cost of a CMMC audit.